I keep my apron folded like a letter I still haven't mailed. Corners aligned, strings tucked neatly inside. Starch crisp enough to whisper when I unfold it. There's a quiet before the doors open, the kind of quiet that lives under the hum of refrigeration and the soft cough of the espresso machine. Light slants through the front windows and paints the empty banquettes in faint gold. I can smell citrus from the lemons. We'll twist over oysters and rosemary, releasing its piney breath from a pan the prep cook forgot to cover. In this quiet, I breathe a little easier. In this quiet, I don't have to be anyone's disappointment yet. I tie the apron and check my pens. One for the order pad, one for the wine notes. One that doesn't actually work, but I always keep as a talisman because the night a famous food critic came in, I wrote with that dead pen and still got every table's order perfect. The bartender, Sonia, lifts a hand from polishing glassware. She's the only person I know who can make good morning sound like a toast and a eulogy at once. Morning, Ion, she says. You doing the smile today? I'll rent it by the hour, I tell her. She grins. It's cheaper to buy. I glance at the reservation book these days. It's digital, equal parts spreadsheet and prayer. We're a small place with a long memory. The kind of restaurant that does not brag but quietly knows it doesn't have to. The chef Matteo trusts me with more than I deserve. His menu, his floor, his regulars who notice when the napkins change brand. I know which corner booth the judge prefers and how to place the banana leaf on the seafood platter so the fish looks like it swam there by choice. I'm a waiter. Some people hear that word and think temporary, like a paper cup. But I know better. You can serve without being small. Still, it's hard to keep that sentence alive when I go home. Home, my mother's apartment smells like boiled cardamom and worry. On Sundays, she stacks newspapers on the dining table and leaves job ads open where she knows I'll see them. Accounts assistant, sales executive, junior analyst. She folds the corner of each page with a neat, accusing triangle. Just look, she says. Looking is free. I do look. I read those ads in the same way I used to stare at the charts in my old economics textbooks. Like maybe if I stood at the right angle, they'd mean something to me. But the only numbers that make sense anymore are table numbers. I can stand in the middle of our dining room and say, without checking, that table 12 got the burrata last time and asked for olive oil that wasn't too peppery. I can recite a flight of Rieslings to a man who thought the word off-dry meant cheap. I can recommend a steak temperature and translate medium rare into exactly the pink his arrogance can tolerate. These are not the skills my cousins boast about at weddings. These are not the words that look impressive when typed on a gilded invitation. Cousin weddings are a sport in my family, contact sport sometimes. We have more cousins than chairs. In our living room, more aunties than chairs in my mother's patience. My father is a quiet man who ghosted politely from our lives years ago. He sends money on Eid in a text at New Year with too many emojis, as if confetti could substitute for history. When he left, my mother didn't stop being married in her routines. She still irons his side of the bedsheet. Flatten buys his favorite brand of tea butt. She also learned to whisper the word practical like a spell. Practical meant finishing my degree. Practical meant a job where I could wear a tie and not spill soup on it. Practical meant learning to make small talk that could fill a grave. I did try. I finished 3 years of an accounting program. And during those years, I learned that I didn't panic at rush hours. I panicked at silence. I learned that I had a body that woke up for dinner service but slept through morning lectures. I learned that I could memorize a balance sheet and still feel unbalanced. It's the first time I told my mother I wanted to work in a restaurant. She thought I meant as a chef. She touched the edge of the table as if a tremor passed through it. Chef, she said, at least that is something. Creative. People respect that. No, I said gently, because I didn't want to hurt her with the truth. Not a chef, Ma, a waiter. She blinked once, twice, the way she blinks when a pot boils over. A waiter. She repeated, tasting the word like a tibitter. Spice. You will carry plates. I will carry nights, I wanted to say. I wanted to tell her how I'd watched servers at Mateo's place glide through chaos. How they were both author and actor. How they gave people evenings they'd remember. I wanted to explain the choreography of service. The way a hand on a chair can be both polite and protective. The way you learn to see the room as one living organism with several mouths and needs and rhythms. Instead, I said, I like it. Good at it. Good, she said, and the end of the word thudded. Good does not put your name on a door. Maybe, I told her, but it puts a name to my day. She lifted her chin. People will talk. They already do. She looked at me with that look that has raised me. Half love, half weather report. You are not what they say, she murmured, and I almost believed her. But people did talk. They didn't whisper. They didn't need to. My auntie Sira, who wears her critique like perfume, started sentences with, not that I have anything, against hard work, but my cousin Rafi, who measures his masculinity by the size of his watch dial, called me Treyboy once in a WhatsApp group chat, and everyone reacted with those laughing emojis that feel like stones. Another cousin, Hina, texted me a photo of a note she found in a fortune cookie. Success is the sum of small efforts. See, she wrote, you can do small efforts forever. I was cleaning cutlery when I saw that message. I lined each knife and fork so their reflections made a narrow river on the white linen, and I thought, if only they knew how much small efforts add up to a service that looks like magic. I put my phone in my pocket and went out to greet a table that had flown in from another city to celebrate an engagement. They wanted to feel special. I made them feel like the night would remember their names. There are days when I carry the weight of their laughter like a stack of plates under one arm. And then there are nights when the dining room fills with conversations that sound like blessing. And the clatter of plates makes a rhythm I can dance to. And the line cooks swear like poets. And Sonia slides a small plate of something, the kitchen, is testing across the bar and says, for you, secret menu. And Chef Mateo nods at me like a captain who knows the ship is safe while I'm on deck. Those nights I don't remember my cousin's watch, my auntie's perfume, my mother's worried triangles of paper. Those nights I remember who I am. I grew up at a different table. My mother cooked on 2 burners like a magician, conjuring. Whole feast out of sachets and hands. She could make lentils taste like a lullaby. She could make rice that didn't stick to anything, not even my worst day. We didn't go out to restaurants often when I was a kid, too expensive, too far. To showy but when we did, I stared at the servers as if they were part of a ballet I wasn't allowed to audition for. I watched the way they leaned near to listen, the way they walked away at the exact moment a conversation between diners needed privacy again. I watched how they could make a table forget about time. Once, when I was 12, a server refolded my napkin when I went to the restroom. I came back, and there it was, a small triangle with edges tucked under itself, waiting for me like something kind. I remember the feeling even now that someone saw me leave and planned for my return. People say service is invisible if it's done right. I think invisibility is a choice, sometimes a gift. But invisibility is also what my family thinks. My future will be if I keep choosing this work. You must do this, my mother said the week I got the job at Mateo's, which came after weeks of running plates and cleaning glasses at a cafe where the owner thought tips were a personal insult. If you must, at least don't stop applying for proper jobs. Keep your options. My options, I echoed, tasting the word until it dissolved. Okay, I did apply to a few things. Interviews were fine. I can smile on command. Turn a sentence into a handshake. Make my GPA sound less like an apology. But when I tried to imagine sitting at a desk under that species of light that only offices know, when I imagined wearing an ID badge and measuring days by the viscosity of the coffee in the break room, I felt something close behind my ribs. I felt breathless, like I was trying to talk underwater. Not that I wanted chaos necessarily, but I wanted movement. I wanted to learn people the way I could learn a wine list. I wanted to be the person who made a night go smoothly. There's a power in that, though my aunties will never say it out loud. There is power in knowing when to step forward and when to recede. In knowing which questions will bring a couple back to each other after a hard week and which will open a scar. There is power in the way you hold a plate. Do you announce yourself? Or do you arrive as if the food placed itself? I'm not naive. I know the cliches. I have cleaned gum from underneath tables and scrubbed a bathroom at 1 a.m. because the cleaner called in sick. I have swallowed insults from men who think an apron makes me furniture. I have smiled at women who ask if we offer a free dessert because it's their dog's birthday. I have burned my thumb on the edge of a skillet and then used that same thumb to circle the rim of a wine glass to show a kid how sound can be a kind of spell. The job takes everything and gives it back triple on the good nights. My family thinks in straight lines: school, job, marriage, mortgage, one black suit to wear to everything. They measure success by decibels of praise at gatherings, by how many people say mashallah when your name is mentioned. They think the world is one big stage and everyone is always watching. Maybe they're not wrong. Sometimes I think they're living in a soap opera and I'm the guy in the credits who carries a tray across the background. The next family gathering on the calendar was my cousin Layla's engagement party, set for the end of the month. Layla is whip smart and kind in ways that my auntie Sarah tries to pretend are transactional. She's also the only cousin who has ever asked me, "What's the best thing on the menu at your place right now?" As if my answers matter. When she came into the restaurant once with her friends, she tipped so quietly that I only saw it later and had to fight the impulse to call her and cry. Layla is the exception that proves the rule. No matter how kind one person is, the group dynamic at our gatherings is ruthless. There's always a chorus, a hum of judgment that sounds like a muezzin for respectability. The engagement party invitations were thick as a promise. My mother pressed our envelope into my hand with a look I couldn't read. "We'll go." She said, "Wear the blue kurta, not the one with the stain." "It's not a stain," I said. "It's a memory." She didn't smile. Memories don't show in photos. I nodded. I knew what she meant. At weddings and engagements, cameras eat more than they feed. Photos circulate in family WhatsApp groups with comments that seem complimentary until you pick at their seams. Looking smart. Someone will write, which is code for "at least you don't look poor." Glowing, which means you look like you know we're judging you. I can feel their captions even when no one has typed them. The Sunday before the party, my mother and I had a quiet war. She laid out a tie on my bed like a threat. "Wear it with the kurta," she said. "It modernizes." "Modernizes what?" "My neck. Your image, Ma," I said, not unkindly. "I'm not a campaign poster." She sighed. "I know, She picked up the tie and smoothed it with her palm as if it were a bird she wanted to comfort into stillness. "Ion, they don't understand your art." "It's not art," I said. "It's work." "That is the problem," she replied. "They think work is only one shape." "I can't be another shape just because they like it," I said. "Not Play-Doh." She almost smiled then, as if the image snuck up on her. No, she agreed. Jew or not. Later that night, when she left for her night shift at the hospital, I sat at the kitchen table and wrote a list on the back of an old electricity bill. It was a list of tables. Table 3 with a retired teacher who brings a notebook and writes short reviews of his soup. Table 7 with a couple who ordered the same dish every week for a year, and then one day without warning ordered different things and laughed. Like they were on a first date again. Table 16. A father and daughter who had a fight halfway through. The main course and made up over dessert, sharing the last spoonful like a peace treaty. I wrote these down so I could remember that my work contains stories, not just shifts. I wrote them because sometimes the only way to brace for a family gathering is to count your miracles ahead of time. On Tuesday, a man tripped over my worth and left it bruised on the floor. He walked in without a reservation, and I told him, as kindly as possible, that we were fully booked. He leaned on the host stand and smiled the sharp kind of smile. "Look," he said, as if pointing out something I had missed. "I don't think you get it. It's Tuesday. It's not like this is Paris." "It is not Paris," I agreed. "But it is Tuesday. We are full. Get the manager." He said, "I am the manager on the floor tonight," I replied. That's what Mateo calls me when he wants to give me a little more spine, a little more height. He looked me up and down Hans' apron, face as if assembling an unfamiliar object. From a kit with no instructions. "A manager?" he repeated, incredulous. "In an apron." "I like to stay useful," I said lightly. He rolled his eyes and started tapping at his phone. "I'll just text someone who knows someone," he muttered, and I heard it. The implication that my no would be outvoted, my boundaries negotiated in rooms I didn't have access to. He texted for 5 minutes and then left, muttering about new money restaurants with old attitudes. I stood very still behind the host stand and breathed, and arranged our menus so the corners aligned. I know someone too, I thought. Know everyone who comes here to celebrate what they made in their own lives. I know how to make a night that holds them. Sometimes knowing someone is less about phone contacts and more about the pulse of a room. After service, Mateo called me into the kitchen. He held a plate with a piece of new dessert on it. Saffron ice cream over a warm fig cake. "Tell me what it needs," he said. I tasted and closed my eyes because sometimes food makes me feel the way music does, like I've been invited to a house I didn't know I had keys to. "Acid," I said. "A little brightness. Maybe an orange zest syrup?" He grinned. "I thought so." Then he leaned against the counter and studied me. "You're far away tonight, Ion. Family thing coming up," I admitted. "A wedding, death, engagement," I said. "Which is a rehearsal for both." He laughed. "Want to invite them here? I'll give you a good rate." I smiled. They wouldn't come. They prefer halls with chandeliers that look like they're about to crash down. Drama. Drama sells, he said. So does hospitality. They don't know the difference, that's their loss. That night I dreamed about tables that stretched somewhere I couldn't see the end of. Every seat was taken by someone I knew, only, in the way you know guests from a distance, their gestures, not their names. I woke up before dawn with my heart beating double time, and an urge to run until the feeling turned into breath. The day of Layla's engagement arrived like a mouth I didn't want to walk into. The venue was a hall my Auntie Sarah insisted on. Its online photos boasted decorative pillars and floral arrangements that looked like they were built to be tagged. On Instagram, I put on the blue kurta my mother liked and the shoes that made me an inch taller, and the tie she eventually admitted looked ridiculous with the outfit. As we left the apartment, she touched my cheek like she was checking my temperature. For a fever of courage. "You will be yourself," she instructed. "Yes," I said. "And you will not argue," she added. "I will be myself but quiet," I agreed. She shook her head, a small smile at last. "You have never been quiet where it matters." I drove us through evening traffic that boiled between the lanes and spilled into every little space. My mother clicked her tongue at rickshaws as if they would hear her and behave. The sun fell behind buildings and the city lit itself like a mirror. I found parking that wasn't quite legal because that is an art too, and we walked into a foyer. That smelled like roses and ambition. Cameras greeted us like old friends you can't avoid. Photographers hired for the event stood near the entrance and directed everyone into poses that looked uncomfortable even for the confident. I put on my rent-a smile and said congratulations to people who didn't need it from me, and accepted. Hugs from aunties whose bracelets snagged threads on my cuff. Every time I opened my mouth to say something kind, I could hear the gears were inside me, the ones that align my words to my family's expectations. Ion. My Auntie Sarah sang, and when she sings your name like that, know that the next notes are knives. "How is the restaurant?" She stretched the last word like a rubber band. "It's good," I said, a sentence safe as white bread. "Busy. Busy is good," she declared. "Idle hands, devil's workshop." Then she leaned closer, her perfume like a flower at war. You know, my husband's friend is looking for someone in his office. Real potential. It's not glamorous at first, but it grows. You should talk to him. You have a nice face. You could be client-facing. I stared at her, thinking about how many meanings could fit inside the word face. Thank you, I said. But I like my work. She blinked, as if I had spoken in a language she didn't subscribe to. Well, she said briskly, at least it keeps you out at night. When you are young, you should be out at night. I smiled and didn't say, I am out at night. But I am working, and that is also a way of being young. She touched my shoulder, like blessing, and moved on to the next relative, her radar always scanning for a more rewarding echo. My cousin Rafi found me later near the dessert table, because of course he did. He has an internal compass that points directly to attention. He wore a suit so tight it looked like his ego would pop out of it if he exhaled too deeply. Tray boy, he said, delighted with himself. Like a child who found a shiny insult and couldn't stop turning it over in his hands. How's carrying stuff? Great, I said. How's selling dreams you don't own? He laughed as if I had complimented him. The hustle, bro, the hustle. He clapped my back with more force than affection. You. No, if you ever need side cash, I can get you into something crypto adjacent. He wiggled his eyebrows, like that phrase meant anything specific. Low risk, high return. I imagined his phone wallpaper, a Lamborghini. I imagined his savings, theoretical. I'm okay, I said. I already have a job. He looked dramatically around. Where? I don't see the apron. It's invisible, I said. Like your due diligence. He snorted and walked off, leaving a trail of cologne I could have used to polish glassware. I stood still and let the noise wash over me. The clink of bangles, the scrape of plates. The laughter that sounds different when it's checking who's listening. Layla found me eventually, which was a gift. Her face was lit with that happiness, which hasn't yet learned to brace itself. She hugged me with both arms and all of her heart. You came, she said, as if there had been a doubt. Of course, I said. You look exactly like yourself, but brighter. She laughed. Is that your fancy waiter compliment voice? It's my fancy cousin voice. She took my hand and squeezed. I'm proud of you, she whispered. You know that, right? I nodded and swallowed something unsayable. I'm proud of you, I answered, and meant it. Then she was whisked away for photographs with her fiancé, and I stood alone in a corner. An island in an archipelago of small talk. I took a breath and cataloged the room the way I do at work. Who was hungry? Who needed water? Who was wearing shoes that would hurt them by midnight? It's a habit now, the way my attention becomes hospitality even when no one asked for it. This habit is a comfort and a curse. It reminds me what I am good at. It reminds me how invisible that goodness can be to the people I was born to. The MC called everyone to gather for the exchange of rings. I found my mother near the back, her hands clasped as if in prayer or restraint. With her, the line blurs. We watched Layla and her fiancé stand in spotlight while cameras blinked, like eyes. In that glow, I felt a familiar ache. Not envy. Not exactly. It was the ache of being outside a story and inside it at once. It was the ache of wanting to be seen for the right reasons. They will ask again tonight, I thought, when the formalities are done and the tongues are looser and the jokes ripple. Through the cousins. They will ask if I have plans to upgrade. They will call what I do a stopgap. They will imply that ambition is a suit and I forgot to buy it in my size. I braced for it like a wave. I didn't know then what kind of wave was coming. I didn't know that the same mouths that called my work small would soon learn how wide a person's life can open when the right door is unlocked. I didn't know that the table they would need one to soon would be more than just wood and legs and a white cloth. I didn't know that a reservation could be a reckoning. But I knew this much as the ring slid on and the applause rose. Like a tide, I was tired of folding myself into a shape that fit other people's plates. And somewhere between the clatter of cutlery and the click of cameras, I made a quiet promise to myself. If they wanted me small, I would learn how to take up the right kind of space. Not loud, not cruel, just undeniable. My mother turned to me then as if she heard the promise click into place. Hungry? She asked. Always, I said. Then let's eat. We moved toward the buffet with everyone else, and as I picked up a plate, I caught my reflection in the steel of the chafing dish. A man in a blue kurta, eyes steady, mouth at rest, hands sure. A waiter, a son, cousin, a person preparing to be more than the sum of the jokes made about him. I balanced the plate in my fingers and smiled at the weight. The way you smile when a tool sits right in your hand. The engagement hall had no windows, only chandeliers dangling like gaudy raindrops above our heads. Every table shimmered with silver platters and gold-trimmed plates. But the air was heavy with something less polished, judgment. At family events like these, gossip travels faster than the waitstaff carrying trays of kebabs. My stomach churned, not from hunger but from anticipation. I already knew what was coming. I had seen it play out before. The dance of smiles. The polite interrogations disguised as casual questions. The comparisons lined up like soldiers. My cousins in their tailored suits would recount promotions, internships, side businesses, investments. Their parents would puff with pride, each story inflated like a balloon threatening to burst. And then, eventually, the spotlight would swing toward Mimi in my blue kurta, the one who carried plates for a living. I sat beside my mother at the round table near the back. She kept fussing with the cuff of my sleeve, straightening it even. Though it was already straight, thinks she was trying to anchor herself, or maybe me, in a sea of conversations that sounded like resumes. Across the table, my Auntie Sarah spotted me. I braced myself the way a soldier braces for a shot. So, Ayan, she said, her voice pitched just loud enough for the surrounding tables to hear. Still at that restaurant? Her smile was sugar, but her eyes sparkled with vinegar. Yes, I replied, keeping my tone level. I've been there a while now. Ah, yes, carrying trays, serving water. Hard work, I'm sure, she said, sipping her drink as though my life were just garnish. The cousins chuckled. Even Raffi, who once lost money on a scheme-selling knockoff? Sneakers Online had the audacity to smirk. It must be tiring, Sarah continued. Always on your feet. Don't they have machines for that now? Laughter scattered around the table. My ears burned. I like it, I said softly, but the words drowned in their amusement. I like it. Cousin Hina jumped in. Come on, Ayan. No one likes being a waiter. It's just temporary until you figure out what to really do, right? The word temporary stung. They said it the way one says failure. I tried to remind myself of the dining room at the restaurant, of how Chef Mateo trusted me, of Sonia's half-jokes that always made me feel seen. But in that moment, I wasn't Ion the trusted floor manager, the one who knew every table's preferences. I was Ion the cousin reduced to a punchline. The conversation moved on like a current, dragging me with it. Cousins compared salaries and company perks, how much their firms contributed to health insurance, which bosses were tolerable, which were tyrants. Every word was another stone piled on my chest. Then Rafi leaned back in his chair, his watch glinting under the chandelier. You know, he said, it's ironic. Ion serves people who probably earn in one night what he makes in a month. Must be humbling, right? The laughter this time was louder, sharper. My mother's face tightened, her hands knotting together in her lap. She didn't speak. I think she feared her voice would crack. I forced a smile that felt like breaking glass. It's not about money for me, I said. It's about passion. Rafi cut me off, rolling the word around like it was a joke itself. Passion for pouring water. I could have snapped then, okay? I could have told him about the man who proposed at my restaurant, and how I orchestrated the evening so the music swelled just as he went down on one knee. I could have told him about the woman who cried because I remembered her anniversary when even her husband forgot. I could have told him how service, when done right, is art. But what's the point of speaking poetry to people who only count money? Instead, I swallowed it. My silence tasted bitter. The evening dragged on. Cameras flashed, music blared, and the buffet line formed. I stood with my mother, both of us balancing plates we didn't want to eat from. As we reached the serving trays, another aunt chimed in. You know, Ion, my friend's son just joined a bank. Starting salary is excellent. Maybe I can connect you. He already has a job, my mother said, her voice calm but tight. Yes, yes, the aunt said with a dismissive wave. But something better. Something with real growth. Real growth. The words echoed in my head like a curse. When we sat back down, Rafi struck again. Hi, Ion, he said, leaning across the table, voice dripping mockery. When we go to your restaurant, do we get a discount if you're the one serving us? The table erupted with laughter, loud enough to turn heads from nearby guests. I clenched my fork so hard I thought it might bend. My jaw ached from holding. Backwards. My mother placed her hand over mine, a silent plea. Don't. Not here. So I stayed quiet, my humiliation laid bare for everyone to feast on. I looked at Layla then, radiant in her embroidered dress, trying to smile for the cameras. Her eyes flicked toward me just once, and in them I saw something that kept me upright. Sympathy. She hadn't joined in their laughter. She never did. But sympathy wasn't enough to wash away the sting of that night. When the party ended, people hugged, posed for final photos, and exchanged empty promises to meet soon. My mother and I walked out together, the cool night air hitting my face like freedom. But inside, I was burning. I replayed every laugh, every word, every jab. They thought being a waiter made me small. They thought it was beneath them. Beneath their imagined status. They didn't know that one day, sooner than they expected, they'd come to Minot for advice, not for family ties, but for something far more practical. A table, and that day the balance would shift. When you live your life carrying plates and balancing glasses, you develop a strange sixth sense. You begin to feel the tension in a room before anyone speaks. You smell conflict before it simmers over. And you can hear arrogance coming from across the floor before its owner even sits down. That sense is what woke me the night after Layla's engagement. I couldn't sleep. My head was still ringing with the laughter of my cousins, their voices replaying in loops. But there was something else too, something heavier, a pulse, a promise, the kind you feel in your bones but can't name. I didn't know then that fate had already set the table for me. 2 weeks later, the restaurant was buzzing. It's Friday night. Peak hour, every table filled. The air hummed with the clinking of cutlery, the murmur of conversations, the occasional burst of laughter. The scent of seared scallops and rosemary chicken swirled through the air. I was on the floor, weaving. Between tables, checking in on guests. My apron strings cut into my waist, but I barely noticed. Nights like this fed me more than any meal could. I was mid-sentence with a couple celebrating their anniversary when I heard my name from the host stand. Sonia's voice, tight and urgent. Ion, can you come here? I excused myself politely and walked over. Sonia's face was pale. She leaned closer, whispering, There's a group asking for you. And, you're not going to like it. I followed her gaze toward the entrance. My heart skipped. 'Twas them, my cousins, my Auntie Sira, even Rafi with his smug grin. The same group that had mocked me at the engagement party. They were standing there, dressed to the nines, shifting uncomfortably as the Friday crowd bustled past them. For a second, I thought I was hallucinating. What were they doing here? Sonia whispered again, We're completely booked. No show rate tonight is 0. There's not a single table free. I nodded slowly, my pulse quickening. And then the realization struck me like lightning. They needed me. Ion. T. Sarah's voice carried across the lobby. She waved dramatically as if she'd spotted royalty. There you are. We were just talking about you the other day. I walked up, my professional smile fixed in place. Good evening. Welcome. Oh, don't be formal with us, she said, laughing too loudly. Family, after all, we just need a table. It's a nice one, you know? Somewhere comfortable. I checked the reservation list on the stand, though I already knew the truth. Do you have a reservation? Rafi scoffed. Come on, bro. You can. Squeeze us in. Look at you, big man here. You're basically in charge, right? My mother's words from that night replayed in my head. They think work is only one shape. And now here they were, suddenly trying to mold themselves into my world. I kept my tone even. Fortunately, we're fully booked this evening. I'm afraid I can't seat you without a reservation. The shock on their faces was immediate. What? Auntie Sarah blinked rapidly, as though I'd just told her the chandeliers might fall on her head. But it's us, family. You can't turn away your own family. It's not about family, I said gently. It's about fairness. Every guest here made a reservation. It wouldn't be right to displace anyone. Rafi leaned forward, lowering his voice in what he probably thought was charm. Listen, man, we've got an important business associate with us tonight. We can't be wandering around looking for another place. Just help us out. One table. We'll make it worth your while. And then, as if the universe had a sense of humor, he winked. You like tips, right? The audacity? Nearly made me laugh. Something shifted inside me in that moment. Just 2 weeks ago, these same people had reduced me to a punchline. Tray boy. Passion for pouring water. Now, they stood in front of me desperate, their pride unraveling thread by thread. I looked around the dining room. Couples leaned close, over candlelight. A family toasted a birthday, their laughter ringing like music. Businessmen shook hands over contracts signed with wine. Each table was part of a symphony. The first was conducting, and suddenly I realized this was my stage. My cousins didn't own this space. Their degrees, their promotions, their fancy job titles, they meant nothing here. Here it was my word that decided whether they ate or left hungry. Let the silence stretch just long enough for them to feel it. Finally, I said, as I mentioned, we're fully booked. But I can put you on the waiting list. If a table opens, we'll let you know. Their faces fell. Waiting list. Auntie Sarah repeated. Scandalized. Do we look like people who wait? Sonia, bless her, smothered a laugh behind her hand. Yes, I said calmly. Tonight, you do. They tried everything. First came persuasion. Come on, Ion. We're family. What will people say if you don't help us? Then came guilt. Your mother would never let you turn us away. Like this. Then came threats disguised as jokes. If we leave hungry, maybe we'll tell everyone your restaurant isn't accommodating. Through it all, I stood steady. Years of balancing trays, of smiling through insults, of biting my tongue had prepared me for this. I understand, I said each time, but my responsibility is to all our guests, not just one group. Fi finally threw up his hands. This is ridiculous. You act like you're some big shot. At the end of the day, you're just a waiter. I looked him dead in the eye, my voice calm but sharp. And tonight, being a waiter means I hold the keys to this dining room. Without me, you don't get in. The words hung in the air like a gavel striking. Just then, Chef Mateo himself emerged from the kitchen, wiping his hands on his apron. He noticed the commotion and walked over. Everything okay here? He asked, glancing between me and the group. Before I could answer, Auntie Sarah jumped. We're family of Ion, we just need a table. Surely you can arrange something. Mateo's eyes flicked to me, waiting for my lead. That was the moment that cemented everything. Even my own family couldn't see it, but here in this space, my word mattered more than theirs. I straightened my shoulders, They don't have a reservation, chef. I've put them on the waiting list. Mateo nodded without hesitation. That's the right call. Sorry, folks. We're at capacity. My cousins blinked, stunned into silence. For once, their degrees, their salaries, their pride had no currency. And in that moment, I saw it clearly. The balance had shifted forever. I didn't know yet what would happen next, that the night would unravel in ways none of us expected, that my family's desperation would deepen into humiliation, that my patience would finally find its reward. But I knew this much. The boy they mocked for carrying trays now held the power they couldn't buy. And soon, justice would be served course by course. I can still remember the way the air shifted that night, how the hum of the restaurant seemed to slow. Chandeliers hummed like witnesses above us. My family stood at the host stand, eyes darting, pride leaking out of them with every second they remained unseated. To the rest of the guests, they looked like any walk-in party hoping for a table. To me, they were the same people who had laughed 2 weeks ago at Layla's engagement, the same voices that had cut me down to tray boy. And here they were, trays out of reach, their hunger plain on their faces. Fine, Auntie Sarah said, crossing her arms. Put us on this waiting list. We won't have to wait long. We're important people. I gave her the same polite nod I gave every entitled guest who thought the rules bent for them. Of course. I clicked on the screen, entering their names beneath 4 other waiting parties. We'll call you if something opens up. They shifted to the side, hovering near the entrance like storm clouds. Rafi tried to act unbothered, tapping on his phone, but I saw the flush creeping up his neck. Their so-called business associate, a man in a sleek suit, glanced around the packed dining room with growing impatience. How long is the wait? He asked, clearly annoyed. It depends, I said evenly. Some tables linger longer. Could be an hour, could be more. An hour. The words were oil on fire. I saw it in their faces. My family was not used to waiting. 15 minutes later, as I passed with a tray of sparkling water, Rafi pulled me aside. Look, man, he whispered, we'll pay you, slip us in. That couple near the window looks almost done. Turn their table faster. You can do that, right? I raised an eyebrow. Turn their table faster. You mean rush them out of their anniversary dinner? His smile faltered. Come on, you act like it's sacred. It's just food. I leaned in, lowering my voice, so only he could hear. It's not just food, it's their night. And unlike you, they treated it with respect. So, no, I won't rush them. His jaw tightened. You're really enjoying this, huh? Power trip? I didn't flinch. I'm respecting my guests. That's what you never understood. An hour crawled by. My family lingered in the lobby, growing restless. Guests who entered after them, with reservations, were warmly escorted to their tables. Each time, my cousins' faces twisted tighter, watching people seated while they remained. In limbo, at one point, Auntie Syra tried again. Louder this time so other guests could hear. Excuse me, Ion, she said in her sing-song voice. We're still waiting. Surely you can find us something by now. We're family, after all. Heads turned. Diners glanced curiously at me, at them, sensing the tension. Smiled, calm, professional, but loud enough for the nearest tables to hear. Yes, Auntie, you're on the waiting list like everyone else. We treat all our guests equally here. The words landed like a spotlight. Equal, family or not, there was no special treatment. My aunt's face flushed crimson. Finally, after nearly 90 minutes, a four-top by the kitchen became free. It wasn't glamorous, no window view, no. Plush booth. Just a standard table tucked near the server station. I approached my family with a practiced smile. Good news! We have a table for you now. Relief flooded their faces. But when I gestured toward the back, their expressions curdled. Their Auntie Sarah hissed. By the kitchen, do we look like people who sit by the swinging doors? It's the only table available, I said. You can take it or wait longer. The business associate glanced at his watch, clearly irritated. Let's just sit. I have another meeting later. So, grudgingly, they followed me. I pulled out the chairs with the same courtesy I offered everyone, but the humiliation was painted on their faces. Raffi muttered under his breath. Unbelievable. I didn't neglect them. That's the part that mattered most. I served them with the same professionalism I gave any guest. Water poured at the perfect angle, menus handed with care. Ty didn't coddle them either. When Auntie Sarah asked, "Can't you do something about the noise?" I replied evenly, "It's the heart of the restaurant, Auntie. Some people like being close to the energy." When Rafi snapped, "Service seems slow tonight," I smiled. "We give each table the time they deserve. Yours will come soon." And when the associate finally leaned forward, frustrated, asking, "Is this really the best this place has to offer?" I looked him in the eye and said, "The best we have to offer is respect." And that's exactly what you're getting. Their food arrived, plated beautifully, as always. I set each dish down with practiced grace. But as I did, I spoke clearly enough for the nearby diners to hear. "Enjoy your meals, and thank you for your patience. We appreciate guests who understand the importance of reservations." 'Twas subtle, professional, but sharp enough too. Cut! A few nearby tables chuckled softly, sensing the irony. My cousins froze, trapped between their pride and their hunger. They ate in silence, the noise of the kitchen clanging around them. No selfies, no laughter. Just forced bites and the bitter taste of their own arrogance. When the bill came, Raffi pushed it toward me with a scowl. "Don't expect a tip." I slid the leather folder back to him, my smile unwavering. "Fine. Your presence tonight has already been memorable." The associate snorted, clearly amused at their discomfort. For once, their guests saw them not as polished hosts, but as fools out of place. As they left, Auntie Sarah avoided my eyes. Rafi muttered something I didn't catch. But I stood tall, watching them go not with malice, but with a deep, quiet satisfaction. For years they had mocked me, dismissed me, reduced me to a punchline. But tonight, the joke had flipped. And the best part? I didn't have to humiliate them with cruelty. I let the restaurant, the very place they once mocked, speak for me. Justice, it turned out, was best served on white tablecloths. That night, as we closed and I folded my apron, Sonia nudged me. "You didn't even need to spill a drop of water," she said, grinning. "No," I replied, tying the strings neatly. "Sometimes the sweetest revenge is just doing your job better than they ever imagined." And for the first time, I didn't just feel like a waiter. I felt like the master of my own table. When the last candle flickered out that night and the dining room fell quiet, I lingered longer than usual. The air still carried traces of roasted garlic and wine, but mostly it carried the echo of something I had never felt so clearly before: vindication. I gathered menus, folded napkins, and stacked chairs with methodical care, each movement grounding me in the reality of what had just happened. For years I had been the butt of their jokes, the cousin who had settled for carrying trays. But tonight, without raising my voice or breaking my professionalism, I had shown them the truth. I wasn't beneath them. If anything, I stood taller than they could see. When I returned home that night, my mother was still awake, waiting by the window as she always did. The apartment was dark except for the soft glow of her lamp. She looked at me, her eyes searching. "You're late," she said. "Busy night," I replied. I hung up my jacket, feeling the weight of the evening settle in. She studied my face. "They came, didn't they?" I froze. "How did you?" She smiled sadly. "I know my sister. If she wanted to impress someone, your restaurant would be the first place she'd try. She thinks reputation is a tablecloth she can spread anywhere." I laughed quietly. Shaking my head, they waited an hour and a half, sat by the kitchen, ate in silence. Her eyebrows rose in surprise. And you? I treated them like any other guest, I said. No better, no worse, just equal. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then she reached over and took my hand, her grip firm. That is all I ever wanted for you, that you carry yourself with dignity. Tonight, you did. It was the closest thing to a blessing I'd ever heard from her about my job. And it meant more than I could say. Family gossip spreads like wildfire. By Sunday, the whispers had already begun. I overheard them in the mosque courtyard, in WhatsApp group chats, pinging on my phone. Ion made them wait. He didn't give them a special table. He treated them like strangers. Some told the story as though I had betrayed family honor. Others told it with a hint of admiration. Either way, the narrative had changed. I wasn't invisible anymore. Even Layla called me, her voice bubbling with laughter. They looked so uncomfortable, she said. Honestly, it was the best thing I've heard in weeks. They'll never forgive me, I said. I don't have to, she replied. Firmly, you didn't do anything wrong. You just reminded them that respect is earned, not demanded. Her words settled in my chest like balm. In the days that followed, I kept replaying everything in my head. I thought about the way Rafi's smirk had cracked, how Auntie Sarah's voice had faltered when she realized my no was final. I thought about the irony of their business associate, watching them beg for a seat in the very place they had once belittled me for working. But more than that, I thought about what it meant for me. I realized that revenge hadn't been about humiliating them. If I had mocked them back, if I had gloated, I would have become just like them. No, the real justice had come from my restraint, from standing my ground without cruelty. By treating them exactly like everyone else, I had shown them what they had never shown me. Fairness, that was the victory. Weeks later, at another family dinner, the tone toward me had shifted. Not entirely old habits die hard, but enough for me to notice. Rafi didn't call me Tray Boy, he asked awkwardly. So, how's business at the restaurant? His words stumbled, but they carried something new. Respect, however, begrudging. Even Auntie Sarah was quieter. She still bragged about her son's promotions and her daughter's scholarships. But she didn't press me about applying to banks or offices. Instead, she only said, "Your chef must trust you a lot, HM." It wasn't an apology, but it was a start. And in that silence, in that space where their mockery once lived, I found peace. Sometimes I still think about the 12-year-old boy who once marveled at a refolded napkin, who wondered what it might be like to make someone feel cared for in such small, invisible ways. That boy would never have believed that one day he'd be the one holding the power, not through money, not through prestige, but through dignity. My job hasn't changed. I still tie my apron each night. I still memorize wine lists and anticipate a guest's needs before they even know them. But something in me shifted. Now, when I walk into that dining room, I don't just see tables. I see proof that worth isn't determined by titles or salaries. It's determined by the way you carry yourself when others try to diminish you. The night my family walked out of my restaurant, defeated and silent, I realized something important. Justice doesn't always come with fireworks or shouting matches. Sometimes it comes in the form of patience, professionalism, and an unshakable spine. They mocked me for being a waiter. They thought my job made me small. But when the tables turned literally, they discovered the truth. It wasn't just a job. It was a calling, a stage, a place where respect mattered more than pride. And for the first time, I felt free, not because I had proven them wrong, but because I no longer needed their approval. As I tell you this story now, I'm reminded of a line Sonia once told me, grinning behind the bar. Hospitality isn't about serving people. It's about reminding them they're human. That night, I reminded my family and myself exactly that. And that, in the end, was enough. People may try to measure you by titles, paychecks, or prestige, but true worth is measured by how you carry yourself when others belittle you. and by the quiet strength of knowing you don't need to be loud to be undeniable. And that's how the tables finally turned, quite literally. What do you think, did they deserve the humiliation, or should family always come first no matter what? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. I read every single one. If you enjoyed this story of betrayal, revenge, and justice served cold, don't forget to give this video a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button so you never miss the next drama-filled chapter. And remember, in this world, respect is earned, not demanded.